Welcome to CoffeeX in English, the podcast where we brew conversations about entertainment, culture, traveling, and learning with a splash of people's experiences from all corners of the world. I'm your host, Felipe Xavier, and I'm thrilled to take you on this exciting journey. On this episode, I have an old friend and colleague to chat about life. Welcome, Rodrigo Freitas, and thank you for accepting my invitation.
Thank you, my friend. I appreciate being here. It's a pleasure, like I told you before. And I'm quite excited about that because I've never been on a podcast before. So I appreciate your invitation.
That's cool, man. Your debut appearance on CoffeeX in English. That's great.
Yeah,
That's an honor for me.
yeah,
And
likewise.
we've been I don't know far for a long time. Like the last time we saw each other, it was like about 6 years ago,
Hmm.
where we used to work together, and it's been a long time. I miss that environment, you know.
It is. Last time we saw each other was personally, we saw each other and we met was about 6 years ago at
Yeah,
Wizard, where we used to work. And it was fun. It was fun. I remember all the jokes and how
yeah,
you used to mock with everyone, and we had our inside jokes. It was
yeah.
actually a great environment to work in.
Yeah. I used
Seriously,
to I used
I
to pick
miss
on
that.
you, I guess, a lot.
You did. You did actually. You picked on everyone there.
Yeah,
You know, you
yeah.
had that reputation, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
it was
yeah,
fun. I remember
yeah.
your students loved you because of your sense of humor and also because you were very light in your classes. You had that spirit with you. So
Well, yeah, maybe I was not that good of a teacher, but
come on, come
I was
on.
fun. At least I was fun,
Yeah,
right?
you were both fun and good. I'm sure about that.
Thank you, man. So, just heads up if you're listening to us on podcast platforms, rate us. If you're listening to us on Spotify or Deezer or Apple Podcasts, you can rate us with 5 stars. And if you're watching us through YouTube, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share with people around the world, because we're doing this to connect people and to know different people, and to exchange experiences. So let's start talking a little bit about what kind of made us meet, which was English. So how did English get into your life, man? How did you get interested?
It started very early in life. It's always been there, actually. Like I said, I can't even remember when it actually started, but uh, there's a story that I like to tell everyone, which people sometimes don't believe in, but it's kind of interesting because right after I was born, I had a godmother, and she told my mom that I would go to America. She just said that. She said, I have a feeling that he's going to the United States. And eventually she ended up moving to the United States. And at the age of 10-ish, I don't remember exactly when it was, I kind of contacted her. I never had contact with her before. She had always been a far relative of mine, and I remember I asked her for advice on how to get my visa and stuff like that. I was really interested in that. My mom always kept telling me that story as I grew up, and the little seed grew in me about wanting to go to the United States and having that in mind. And she just ignored me. My godmother just ignored me. She didn't even reply to my messages.
Oh my
And
God.
of course, I was counting on her support, maybe to stay with her or something like that, or at least some
Hmm.
tips on how to go because I was totally inexperienced. And she just ignored me. And at the age of 12, my mom decided to enroll me at a new school at the time, which was Wizard Language School. And it was at the time probably the best language school that we had there. And I was quite excited about it because I never studied at a private school before. And I was always so into English. That was part of my life through music, movies. I used to try to sing along, even though I didn't know the lyrics, and it was always part of my life. And I got really excited. I loved the methodology, the people I met there, my classmates, my teacher. I do remember all of them as if it were yesterday. But after studying for 6 months, my mom came to me and she said that she wouldn't be able to afford my classes anymore because it was quite expensive. Actually, the materials and the monthly tuition was quite expensive. And at the age of 13, I decided to work with my mom at the pizza place to keep paying for my English course, which was probably the best decision I've ever made because now I've been working as an English teacher for almost, actually, it's been 15 years this month. I
Whoa.
started in August 15 years ago. So it's my bread and butter, and it's something that I love doing. And I'm very, actually very proud of saying that because, as a matter of fact, I became who I am today because of English. You know, everything that I know now, I can support myself financially. I have a good lifestyle. I can, I was able to make my dream come true. But long story short, I decided to work at the pizza place with my mom, and the money that I got there, which wasn't very much, I used to spend most of it just for my monthly tuition, and I never quit. At the age of 17, people at Wizard, the staff there, invited me to participate in a training to eventually become an English teacher. But I was not in the requirements actually because it was supposed to be someone who was over age. I was 17, and it was supposed to be someone who was at the time it was B8 the level. It was like one, B2, B3 up to B10 at the time. It wasn't W. Then eventually they changed to W2, W4, which you know what I'm talking about. But then it was supposed to be B8 plus, and I was B6. But I was always very good at English, modesty aside, because I always liked it so much. And then I remember I participated with eight more people, and I was the only one who was underage and the only one who was under level. And I still managed to be the only one who passed, and I became an English teacher at the time. Funny
That's
story,
cool.
just to tell you, my friend. I remember my first week teaching, I was extremely nervous.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I used to teach a group of teenagers who were about like 12 or 13 years old, and they were teens too. They were doing the second book, and I got this group. And I was very nervous, but I tried to show some confidence. And in the very first class, I decided to introduce myself in Portuguese because in English they wouldn't understand. They were like basic level. And I said in Portuguese, but I said, "Hey, my name is Rodrigo. I'm going to be your English teacher this semester, and I'm 17 years old, blah, 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 blah." Okay, then I taught my class. And the next day, my second day at work, Fatinha, my boss, which I love very much, she just came to me and she said, she did this, "Come here." And I was frightened because I had no idea what I did wrong. So she called me into a room and she said, "What did you say in your first class?" And I told her exactly what I said. My name, my age, and she, "Why did
Mm.
you do that?" And I was, "Why?" Because a lot of parents, they called us, they were pissed because they said, "How do you choose a kid to teach other kids?"
Oh God.
And they were kind of insulting. They were
Mm-hmm.
actually very mad at me and at her for hiring me. And she stood by me. She said, "No, he's very prepared. He went through a process of training. He was the only one who passed. He graduated in the intermediate pre-advanced course." So she was really on my side, but then she kind of, she told me off because and she said, "You're gonna lie about your age." So back then I decided to grow my beard, and I was telling my students that I was actually 20 years old when I was 17 because people, they kind of underestimated my potential as an English teacher, which
Yeah.
eventually I managed to prove people wrong. like
Uh-huh.
studying hard. I was the most, hardworking employee,
Mm-hmm.
or one of the most hardworking employees that they had. And I'm really proud of saying that because it was difficult. It wasn't easy for me, but I'm actually proud of where I got because of that. So I am very, very proud of my story with English, and it's been part of my life ever since.
That's cool what you said about people underestimating because of age. I kind of went through the same thing, but I didn't start teaching. I wasn't underage when I started teaching, but I had a look. You know, I
Yeah,
looked like I was like way younger than I was, and oh, different than you because you started hard, I guess, because teaching teenagers or kids is not, it's not easy.
it is not.
But when I used to teach, like I remember the first class I ever taught, and it was on a Saturday afternoon at 1 o'clock, and it was like a group of like older people. It's not, when I say old, it's not like elderly, but it's like people in
Yeah.
their 30s. And I had that face. I didn't have a beard back then, and that was the reason I started growing a beard. The same reason, because I was like, okay, with a beard, people are going to respect me. So I had a beard with I had like glimpses of beard. It was not a full beard, and I felt that a little bit in the beginning, because it felt like people were always testing me. Let's see if this guy really knows what he's talking about.
Mhm.
And like you said, I was never a really good student, but student in class. But I was a geek, studying by myself and trying to learn things. So every class, I was very prepared about that content, especially in the beginning where I didn't know anything about teaching. All I knew was English. I was like, I gotta be prepared for whatever they throw at me. And it worked. It was fun. And like you said, English, not only as a teacher that I think I taught for about 8 years, but English not only helped me at this time when I taught, but today I work in the area of technology, and I work with people from other countries, and that's only possible because of English.
Exactly.
So it's crazy how this language like changed our lives basically.
There was a time I like telling everyone this story because it's kind of fun and ironic at the same time. I was, probably something like 19 years old. So I started to get more confidence in English as I grew older. And I remember there was a time, it was on a Saturday morning. There was this teacher, coworker, colleague of mine. She called me like at 7 a.m. Her class was supposed to start at 8. And I think my first class was only at 9:30. And she had that class at 8, but she called me at 7, and she was super hungover, and she was kind of drunk and had a migraine or something like that. And she asked me, she said, please, I'm begging you to cover me because I just can't. If I show up like that, they're going to fire me right away because they're going to see the way I look and it's not going to
Wow.
look good. And she literally almost begged me to go. And I said, yeah, it's fine. I can go. It's totally fine. Just asked for Fatinha's permission because I don't know if I can simply show up there and
Hmm.
teach in your place, in your behalf. And she said, no, okay, I'm going to call her and then you can go in my place. I just need someone to cover me. And I really appreciate that. And then I went to the school earlier to prepare my class because it was intermediate advanced class. And I remember as if it were yesterday, it was tech question. Grammar section was about tech question. And I went earlier and I prepared, I was studying, and they were all adult. My target audience, let's put it this way, had always been teenagers because, I was younger and it was kind of easier to deal with them. But at that time, it was like all adults. And I remember when it was 8, I had my book in my hands, and I was like, so Adriana's students, and then I started like calling out their names, and they were all there sitting. And one of the students, I can remember that as if it were yesterday, seriously. He was sitting in the chair, and he looked up at me and he said, "You, you're gonna teach us today?" He had that despised look in his
Mm-hmm.
eye. And I tried to show confidence. I was very nervous on the inside, but I tried to show confidence. So I said, "Yeah, that's right. Shall we?" And then they came into the classroom, and then I started teaching them. Right after I taught them, I had a break, and then I had to change my class. And I remember they said, "Close the door as you leave." And I was like, "Okay." And I was terrified
Mm-hmm.
because I really thought they were going to screw me. That's the word.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if I'm allowed to say like some bad
You
words.
you can curse. It's
Okay.
okay.
So they closed the door, and then they kind of got together, reunited, and I had no idea what they were talking about. And right after that, they called my manager at the time, my coordinator, and I was terrified. I was shivering literally. But then I taught my next class, and I try not to think about that so much. And right after my class, Isa, who was my coordinator at the time, she called me into a room, and she said, "We have a problem." I said, "What's up?" So these students, they don't accept their former teacher anymore. They just want you to replace me, like immediately. You know, and I was like, "Seriously?" And they said, yes, they simply loved your class. They said it was
Damn.
really good. I felt good, not going to lie about
Uh-huh.
that, but guilty at the same time for some
Yeah.
reason. I didn't badmouth her. I didn't tell them that she was hungover, and I just said that she was sick at the day. And then the coordinator, she told me that they really wanted me as their English teacher. And then this English teacher, who was their English teacher, she got really pissed at me. She said, "What did you do?
Oh.
Why? Why is that happening?" And she was actually very mad at me because
Uh-huh.
she kind of lost money because of that. Because the more classes you have, the more money you make. You know how it
Yeah.
works. And then I got the class because otherwise they said that they didn't want anybody else. And
Damn.
all I did was I worked hard to,
Mm-hmm.
try to impress them, and I prepared my class, and I was confident on the outside because on the inside I wasn't. But then, I got really proud of that. It was kind of bad because after that, it became an awkward situation between this teacher and me.
Yeah.
Whenever we were together, she barely looked into my eyes, and I apologized to her, even though I thought that I didn't have to. But anyway, it was kind of fun and sad at the same time.
Yeah, but isn't it good? Like, I have two situations here. One, I hate. I don't know. I don't know if I can say that. Like arrogant people that they judge you by like they look at you and they have all their opinions about you. They have you all figured out by just one look. And as teachers, we go through that a lot, right?
Yeah,
But on the other hand, doesn't it feel awesome
exactly.
when you just turn the whole thing around and like because this is exactly what happened. Like they
Hmm.
had a formed opinion of you based on nothing, based on looking at you, and then afterwards they were like, okay, we were completely wrong. And did it, I don't know, of course, I imagine that they didn't, but I was gonna ask, they apologized to you, I don't know, saying, oh,
The
we thought you were
students,
wrong. Yeah.
no, no, they never admitted that. But
Yeah.
they did tell me that they told me that they love my class. That's all they
Uh-huh.
did.
Uh-huh.
They
Yeah.
said, you were amazing, you were enthusiastic, you had knowledge about everything. And when you told me about these kinds of students who ask you questions just to test your knowledge, I remember when you told that, it brought back some memories because in this very first class that I taught this student, there was this guy, the same guy who looked up at me and he said, like, he looked up at me like physically, but he looked down on me
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
because he kind of underestimated my potential. And in class, he started asking me lots of questions and some hard ones. And I had the feeling that he was trying to test my knowledge, and he asked a lot of questions and I answered all of them. And I even gave the explanation to everything. I said, with details and everything. And I think that's what impressed him. I'm quite sure he did that to test me out. It was being almost an ass on purpose. And I managed to deal with that situation with good humor and was like, okay, I just have one more question. Is that okay with you? I said, hit me up. Okay. I like students who ask me questions, who,
Uh-huh.
kind of challenge me. And I
Yeah.
think it showed them confidence because that's what they needed to see actually in the end.
Yeah, and even if we don't know, because like I think everybody should know this by now, teachers don't know everything. So if we don't know, you gotta show the confidence that you don't know, but
Mhm.
you're going to find out, and then you're going to tell them about it, because that's part of the job too. Learning, because us as teachers, it means that we are at a level that they are not, so we are passing the knowledge that we have, but it doesn't mean that there isn't any more anything else to learn, and yeah, even to say I don't know, we have to say I don't know with confidence.
Yes, exactly, exactly.
you
That's the
know
thing that I learned and I love about English because it's an unstoppable path to learning. There's no limit to learning because there's always something new. I've been reading a book now about technology, by the way, and hackers and everything like that. And there's always, whenever I read it, there's always a word that I'm not familiar with. I can understand through context, but I have to look it up, but through experience. For example, before I moved to the United States, I thought I had great knowledge about the language. And when I moved, I knew nothing compared to what I learned there, from native speakers and from the courses that I took there and things that I was sure about. I knew that I knew nothing about. I just figured that out in the hard way there, which was great because I kind of learned to, accept the consequences and study more. So there's never a limit to studying. It will always be like that. We got to keep studying. And sometimes our students ask us things and we say, sorry, I don't know that, but I'm going to look it up in next class. I'll give it to you. We got to be mature enough to say that we don't know something, and we don't. It's part of life. It's something that everybody should understand.
And well, you just said that you moved to the US. So you started talking about your godmother not helping you go.
Ironic, right?
And but you had this experience abroad, right? Right now you're not in the US, you're in Brazil, right?
Yeah,
But tell me about this experience, because I remember that I think I met you right after you came back
exactly.
from the US. How did that happen?
Well, also funny story. I'm not a very religious person, but I do believe in God's plans, and He has something planned for each one of us because there's no other explanation. And you might want to agree with me after I tell you my story. I've always wanted to go abroad, and I kept telling everyone it's my dream, it's my dream. But I actually never had the money to do that. I would never be able to afford going abroad by myself, making the money that I was making as an English teacher. One day, out of nowhere, I was sleeping in my bed, taking a nap, an afternoon nap. On a very random day, my mom came to me and she sat by my side and she started tapping my shoulder and she started caressing me and she said, "My son, are you awake?" "Yeah, I am." And I was like, "Hey, what's up? What do you want to talk about? Let me sleep," something like that. And she was like, so you want to go to the United States?" I was like, "What? What are you talking about? Are you crazy, mom?" And she said, "No, because I just met someone who might be interested in your job." And I was like, I couldn't even believe her. But long story short, she was at a grocery store Very randomly, she was doing grocery shopping, and all of a sudden, she eavesdropped someone talking about something related to that. And she overheard a conversation like that. Hey, do you know someone who is a man from 18 to 26 years old who's fluent in English and wants to go to California to take care of some kids? My mom immediately turned around and she said, oops, hey, hello, my son. Seriously, it was like that. And then this old lady was talking about that, and she said, my son is an English teacher and he's fluent in English. He's a very hardworking guy. And she started, paying lots of compliments about me, you know. And she got the phone number of this old lady who used to live in Araguari, that was in Araguari. And then I contacted her, and eventually I went to her house, and she started explaining to me that she had a daughter who lived in California, who had two sons, and they were looking for an au pair. At the time, I wasn't actually very familiar with this term, but an au pair is like a babysitter. And it's like some sort of exchange program where you go abroad, they pay you what they call a stipend, and which is under minimum wage in the United States, but also they provide you with home. They call it housing boarding, which is includes home and all the food that you need. You don't have to pay for anything else, and a car, and you have a private room in the house, and you have to work like 40 hours per week taking care of kids. But the pre-requirements were someone who was fluent in English. They preferred a male person because they had an experience with a female au pair, which wasn't very good, and it needed to be someone. And the fact that I was an English teacher back then helped me, because I was going to help the children do their homework and be disciplined and things like that. And I had already worked with children before, so she kind of loved me, my resume. And then I got the email, her daughter's email, and then I started talking to her from California. She was from California, and she's Brazilian, and she married a Mexican guy, and they had two American sons. They were born there, and they barely spoke Portuguese, and they wanted a Brazilian because she wanted to teach them Portuguese too, because she wanted
Oh.
to to keep the roots, the Brazilian roots.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, long story short, I ended up talking to this woman, and then I, applied for this job online, and then there was an agency, an au pair agency, who they contacted me, and they went through all the process about visa and everything like that. And after like 6 months, I kept it a secret and I told nobody. But then I was in my last semester in college, so I said, "Can you please wait for 6 months, because no, I'm about to get my certificate, my diploma, and I really don't want to put it all to waste, because if I go right now, I won't be able to recover all that." And I had a 100% scholarship, so it was a lot of money that a lot of time that I would waste, because I didn't pay for that. It was a private school at Exanque, Berlândia. Anyway, so she waited for me to graduate. I graduated in December 2014. In January, and I back then I had already taken my visa. In January, I moved. January 12th, to be more precise, I moved to the United States, specifically to California, where I lived for 2 years. And there I had the opportunity to live with this family, which wasn't a very good experience. But I also had the opportunity to study abroad. I got some international certificates, one of which is from Stanford University, and I got an A+, which I'm extremely proud of. It's the greatest accomplishment in my life, the
You're
greatest
such a
experience
geek, man.
ever. Yeah, seriously, I went there, and all my au pair friends, they said, "Oh, just go out and let's hang out, let's enjoy, let's party." I said, "No, I'm focused on learning here," and I actually went with that purpose in mind. And but I enjoyed a lot too. I traveled a lot too. So that's how it happened. It was very, very random. and I just spent 400 reais going to the United States. That's all I paid for, which was the cost of my visa. That's all I paid for. They paid for my tickets, for the hotel when I got there, for the training, because you have to have a specific certificate. They call it infant certificate in order to take care of kids like CPR and stuff like that. So it was the cheapest way for me to go to the United States. And it's the easiest one. I recommend this to anyone who's from 18 to 26 years old. And I also studied for free there. I didn't pay for anything, because the family, they had to pay for that. So it was a great experience in the end.
Brazil is a cool place, but when you see other realities, they're not perfect as well. But there are some basic things that they make a lot of difference. I've never been to the U.S., but I've been to Europe, and it's
So
like
you've
it's
been you've
it.
been to Switzerland, right?
I've been to Swiss. I've been to Europe twice, when I got married in last year, and man, it's something like out of this world. It's like
I
it's
saw the
completely
pictures. I couldn't even
different.
believe that was real. I thought it was like Photoshop.
Yeah, it is, man. When like Switzerland, it's like it's come on, get out of here.
It's my
It's
dream
like
place to go in Europe. I don't have this, fascination that most people do about going to Europe in general. It's not like my cup of tea. But Switzerland and Italy, maybe, but first Switzerland by far.
yeah, I totally recommend, and it's like it's expensive. Like Switzerland, it's expensive, but it's not unreachable. If you find like a good Airbnb, you don't have to stay at hotels. Hotels are going to be very expensive, but if you find a good Airbnb, and if you, I don't know, buy stuff at the supermarket. Like if you're staying like a week, for example, pick a day or two to go to a cool restaurant, and the rest you can eat at your Airbnb. It's like, because it's amazing, man. Because there, like my wife likes to say that Switzerland, everything is really expensive, but to look at the site is for free.
It's free. Yeah, that's
So
right.
and you don't, and you can't get enough of the site, because it's like it feels fake. It's so perfect, it feels fake.
It does. It looks fake from this side. When I saw the pictures, I think I saw pictures of you posting on Instagram, and of a student of mine who had been there before as well. And I texted him. I said, "You edited that. I mean, what kind of filter did you use in that? No, there's no way that's that green. It's not that blue. It was, I think it was in spring." And he said, "It is exactly that. I promise you, it's not fake. It's not Photoshop." I said, "There's no way. I wouldn't want to leave a place like that. Not in a million years." Did you spend your honeymoon there? It was right
Yeah, I
after you got
spent
married, right?
yeah, I spent my honeymoon there. Like right after we kind of made a decision that we wouldn't spend thousands of reais in our wedding, so we did a very close thing for only close friends and family, because we wanted to spend on a trip, because man, getting married, it's freaking expensive.
Yeah.
So and I also have a family living in Germany, so we kind of focus like most part of our money to stay 5 days in Switzerland, and the other days we stayed at my uncle's house in Berlin. But we spent like a day in Italy. We went to Milan and Rome in on the way back. But then we were only allowed to stay for, I don't know, 17 days, I guess, because we stayed part of it in my uncle's house, because otherwise it would be really expensive. But on this second time, we went with, it was last year. We went with my brother and his wife, like, because he always wanted to go, and he speaks English, but he's a little bit scared. He was like, "No, man, you guys been there, so like the ways. So I would be way comfortable if you went with us." So we went again, and it's like it's out of this world. We kind of did the same trip again. We went to the same countries, but we added France. We went to Paris. Yeah, and we met different cities in Italy, in Switzerland. So in Italy, we went to Venice, and we could spend like 3 days in Rome, which we didn't the first time. We spent like only half a day in Rome, so it's amazing. Like if you have the chance, man, to go, just go. Like it's fantastic. Like I cannot recommend Europe enough. At least the countries I've been to, it's
Exactly.
amazing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I'd like to go straight there, a direct flight to Switzerland. That would be my first, because then I would spend all the money I had there. It will be enough to me. Seriously, I wouldn't even need to. I know going to different countries would be awesome as well. But if I had a limited amount of money, which I probably will in the future, I want to go there, straight there. I don't have to stay at expensive hotels, like you said. I just want to see the sights, which is a dream of mine in Europe.
Man, I had like a list of things to talk about here, but we are out of time because I don't want to make this like too long so we don't get tired and our listeners don't get tired. But I want you to come back so we can
Absolutely.
talk about many other things about because we started talking about English, and we kind of get into English, especially here in Brazil, because of culture, right? Because we are so we are so influenced by music, by movies. So I wanna have a podcast so we can talk about that.
Sure, absolutely.
Will you come
Sorry I got
back?
carried away. I think I overspoke a little
No,
bit.
come
And
on.
sometimes I get too excited and I don't stop talking, and maybe
No, come on. That's the
it's
idea.
just
That's the
okay.
idea.
But it was great
So
having you here.
yeah, I
And
want
I'd
to
like
thank
to
you
make it
for
official here
accepting it.
so our listeners can listen to us, because I want to invite you to one of my conversation classes. It's simpler than that. It's just with my students and me, basically. But whenever you have the time and when I have our next conversation week, which I do very frequently with my students, I'd like to have you over so it can be online so we can chat with my students as well. It's just like we did here, but with more people. And I'm sure they're going to be impressed about your English and your stories as well.
Come on. Just let me know, man. Just let me know the
Sure.
day.
We'll be in
I'm all
touch.
free.
Yeah, correct.
Thank you so much, man, for agreeing to do this. Thank you, our listeners and the people who are watching us. Like I said, if you're watching us on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, like it, share this episode, especially if you listen to this and you heard Rodrigo's experience. Like he's been to the US in this experience, and it was great. Like he said, he spent 400 reais. So if you're listening to us from Brazil and if you have this experience, there is many other ways so you can go and you have an experience abroad, which will be amazing. If you're listening to us from podcast platforms, rate us. And thank you again, man.
All right. I appreciate that. Thank you.
I'll see you guys next time. Well, thank you for listening to one more sip of CoffeeX. I'll see you guys next episode. Bye bye.